Real Enigmas and Theories is back again with another video. Hey yo, this episode right here was, I think, the first time that we got a recap like this at the beginning of the episode. I don't know, I could be wrong, let me know. But the swing of this episode was very different from any episode that we saw in the series so far, and it fit perfectly with the first two episodes being two totally different perspectives of the innies and the outies. So it was great to me, I loved it. So we're gonna get into the review, the breakdown, we're gonna look at some symbolism and a whole lot more, but before that, go ahead and do all that dope YouTube stuff by tapping that screen a couple of times, by liking, sharing, getting ready to hop down in the comments. And also, if you're new here, welcome. And if you're not subscribed, hopefully this will be the video that'll make you do it. So without further ado, let's cook. So we start this episode off with Cobell in what looks like to be the middle of nowhere, sleeping in her little hoopty. Hey yo, whoever that truck driver was that passed her and beeped the horn like that, they need their ass whipped. She packed her bags and she got the hell up out of there. We then cut to a scene where Mark is obviously carrying out some sort of plan that him and Devin have been working out. It looks like she kept at him about his wife possibly being down on the severed floor, and they're working on a plan to get a message to his innie to ask her who is alive. And that's the title of this episode. He's timing himself to see how long he can vision an after image. But later on, Ragabi tells him how stupid that is, and that it wouldn't work anyway because the sensors make your pupils dilate, which we have seen many times when they go down on the severed floor. Now, I've talked about the pineal gland as in reference to where the chip is being placed at, and the multiple reference to the pineapples as well. Those are connected because they both get their name from the pine cone. And I've been getting some comments in my comment section about the way that I pronounce pineal gland, and they're saying that I should be calling it pineal gland. Well, actually, pineal gland has two pronunciations, and pineal gland is actually the first pronunciation. Pineal gland came later. Actually, it was named after the pine cone, so that's why it's called the pineal gland. So I'm not wrong in my pronunciation. There's actually two. Mark and Devin's idea to create an after image would also be connected to the pineal gland due to the light exposure being the most important factor related to the functioning of producing the melatonin secretion. So we cut to MDR and we see Mark printing out some missing posters of Miss Casey. I thought that Helly drew those posters, but it was actually Irv. But Helly did show her drawing skills before, and she actually critiqued Mark on his when he was redoing Petey's map. So he and Helly, or Helena, whoever she is right now, are going to go look for the Goat Man. And peep how Mark calls him the Goat Man. Mark asked Dylan to go down to the new break room, in which he kind of brushes Mark off because we know that he's hiding something that Milchick has proposed to him, and there's some sort of division that's being drawn between the MDR people and Dylan. Two things here. He's really wanting to know more about his Outies family life, and he could be a little bit jealous that Mark has Helly and Miss Casey is his actual wife, and he could also be a little bit jealous about Mark being the brother-in-law of Rick and Hale. Now, I know I've theorized that Dylan may have been working with Petey, so I think that Dylan will snap out of it at some point and start talking to the rest of the crew about what he and Petey have been doing. I think Dylan is just going through his traitor arc right now. He'll be back on board with us. So Mark assigns Irv to go to O&D and show the missing poster around. And he hasn't been back there since Bert's departure. Helly/Helena says, "We got you." And you can see Dylan's reaction. He's more like,
"Nah, you got him. I got me. I'm looking out for me. Shit."
So then we get to a scene where Helly and Mark have this awkward huddle where you can tell Helly wants a kiss, but then this happens. And she walks away looking like,
"This motherfucker."
Milchek's strolling into work late with the Fonz's jacket on, and he notices that Mark left those balloons in the hallway. Milchek gave Mark 12 blue balloons. Then he also gave Helly a dozen white roses. There were 12 chairs in the conference room, and in the intro sequence, there were 22 baby boys around the bed with Mark, right? And then there were the Any mark and the Audi mark that was standing on his chest, and he grabs them. So that makes 23 and 24 people right there, which is also divided by 12, right? I remember several other references to 12, which is the number of completion, and I expect to see a lot more of that tie into a major plot point. Anyway, Milchek isn't too happy about the balloons, but it seems like management life has been keeping him out the hallways, because them shits have been sitting out there since Mark's first day back. The fuck you think he was gonna take them upstairs with him? Nah, bro, get them little lame ass balloons the fuck up out of here. We thinking about deeper shit now. Them little perks and all that shit don't work no more. No balloons. This man knows that his Audi's wife is down there. Ain't no balloons and shit like that gonna work. It's up from here on out. So Irv must have dipped to the bathroom or something and came back. And he tells Dylan that he's recreated the painting and he wants Dylan to go with him and look for it. And Dylan brushes him off too, right before Miss Wong shows up to come get Dylan. Why Irv hasn't told Mark and Helly yet, or if he has, I don't know. But Irv slides on over to Miss Wong to stretch out the use of his new hall pass and lets her know, like, look, I got a hall pass. I'm the fuck up out of here. I'll be back when I be back. So Miss Wong tells Dylan to follow her. And then we see Milchek finally making it to his office, and I wonder why he's late. But he's greeted by Natalie and the board. Now when he sees her, he seems afraid, and Natalie actually kind of seemed a little afraid or a little sketchy too. And something I notice is that Natalie refers to the board as an it, as if it's one thing and not a group. And just something about the way she said it just made the board feel not human or something, you know? And it seems that the board has commissioned a gift for Milchek, a series of paintings of Kier in the likeness of Milchek, or Kier as a so-called black man with blue eyes. Man, they done put my boy Milchek on a Uncle Ben's rice box. What the fuck? How the hell y'all gonna have Kier looking like he retired from the Negro Leagues? Who thought this shit was okay? Ben Stiller tried to hit us with a little bit of Tropic Thunder real quick. Somebody called a union on these folks. Milchek was not happy about this. He put that shit way up there where couldn't nobody even reach it at the end of the episode. Bro thought it was a painting of his granddad or something. They got Kier standing on the mountain looking like Uncle Remus and shit. Look at this picture right here, the little boy in the bed like, y'all see this bullshit? And then old girl said that they gave her one too, and I'm like, well, what the fuck did that look like? They must have gave her this. But the way they was acting is if they was afraid to say that this shit was trash. It was like they didn't even want to say nothing. It was like they was trying to watch their words. They was just talking with each other's eyes and shit. But anyway, we get to see Cobell still crying and driving before she turned around to go back. It's like she looked down at that breathing tube and it reminded her of some sort of mission she had to complete. Then we get a shot of Mark and Helly looking for the goat man. And they find the room, but this time no goats, no goat man. But they got like a white model farm there sitting there on the floor and a small door to a shitty hallway that leads to
Mammalians nurturable.
This woman leads Mark and Helly to her desk where they sit down and talk for a minute. They even got a little vending machine over there, right? So she sits there and lies about Miss Casey. And when Mark refuses to leave without any real answers, she rings the bell to call what looks like the rest of her whole department comes up. I mean, Lumen out here just severing any goddamn body. Boy, this motherfucker right here look like he about to ask for a cigarette. Bruh right here look like they just pulled his ass through a keyhole. And look at bro right here. He looked like he just made it out the Jumanji game and shit. This dude over here looking like Ripper from The Last Action Hero. We even got Narnia characters up in this motherfucker.
The
If one of your goats went missing, wouldn't you go looking for it?
He's got a point.
Yeah, he's right. He's got a point.
Yeah,
He's
if
right.
it was a goat, we go find him.
Now, obviously, multiple departments have been told that MDR has pouches with larvae that come out and eventually replace the worker. And the mammalians have been told this shit too. I remember when Bert was telling Irv about that whole thing. And so since they've been fed this story, they said before letting them leave, they had them surrounded in a circle and they said, you can't leave pretty much without showing us your bellies. We need to see that. So they showed them. So then we get to see that they revamped the entire security room. And I'm pretty sure that they did that to prevent anything like the MDR uprising from ever happening again. They got rid of that whole control booth, but all that shit's gone. And they've turned it into the family meeting spot that was promised to Dylan by Milchick. And it's crazy as hell they brought his wife Gwendolyn there. And right off the bat, I noticed how she kept calling Milchick by his first name, Seth. Now, we didn't see Milchick go inside the house when he fired or rehired Dylan, but he does tell Dylan that his wife wanted him to know her name. So when did she tell Milchick this? We did see Milchick go in the home when he woke up Dylan that first time, but now we know that his wife works at night, and that's why she wasn't able to watch the boy, and Milchick had him counting to 1,000. Could Gwendolyn be the reason that Milchick was late to work? I don't know. And does he talk to her when Dylan doesn't know? Something else I noticed is that when she told Dylan's innie that I love you, but she didn't even tell her husband on the outie that she loved him. That bugged me out. She didn't even tell him about the meeting that she had with his innie. She didn't tell him anything about it. When he mentioned it, she tried to act like she didn't even know what he was talking about. And then she just gave him some half-ass answer. That's a red flag. And speaking of red flags, somebody please tell me why Rickon is out here flirting with the ops. What the fuck is this? Now we know that most of the newspaper, if not all of it, that Milchick shows to Mark talking about them being famous was a lie. However, Natalie seems to be trying to recruit Rickon to actually write a book. And I remember in that article, or one of the articles talked about Rickon had written a book for Keir. So it looks like they're trying to make that a reality, possibly to reinforce the narrative. And Rickon is all for that shit. The smartest thing he ever did was make up Miss Kobelvik. And I'm gonna give him that. Devin is not impressed with this shit, and she heads over to Mark's place so that they can work on that plan to message the innie. But before she leaves, she drops some egg symbolism by calling her brother a good egg. The egg symbolism has been showing up everywhere in Hollywood, movies, and TV shows for the last 5 years. And I've done some videos about this. You can go check a couple of those out. But briefly put, this symbolism is referring to the Vesica Pisces and fertility. And you're going to want to wait until the Ragabi part at the end of this video, because I dropped a little bit of symbolism there, and I walk you through the whole ritual in ritual form, not as you see it on the show, but as the hidden meaning of the gestures, the motions, and the symbolism. But as I said, it pretty much refers to the Vesica Pisces and fertility. And we'll go over some of that a little bit later. I even spotted a Vesica Pisces in one of the shots with Ragabi. It was pretty dope. So Devin goes over to plan to create the after image with Mark, and then she just dips off. She talks about Mark left her there with the bill at Pips, but it was her that texted him and offered to take him to some shitty diner food. So we get a shot of Milchick's office, nice and clean. All his stuff is unpacked away, which indicates that some time had really passed. Enough time for Devin and Mark to start planning, enough time for the MDR people to start planning to find Miss Casey. Irv said that he'd drawn one of those faces every day that he couldn't see Bert. And there were at least 2 weeks worth of pictures in that little book for sure. I didn't catch exactly how many of them it was, but it was more than 10. Not only that, but now we know that the search for the hallway is pretty much over because Felicia knows the location. So we don't need Dylan to go with Irv. Irv can go find it with Felicia. Now, back on the outside, we see Mark pulling up to some kind of barn building, and he's in the car practicing how long the after image can stay in his mind's eye. We see him put the cover over his head and shine the light. This symbolic light under the veil represents a spiritual enlightenment. Mark is literally trying to ask his inner self a question, or ask his inner self to enlighten him on who is alive. We'll get a little bit more into the ritual later when we get to the Ragabi part. Miss Cobell must have been speeding her ass off because she makes it back to Lumen and was posted up outside waiting for Helena to get out for the evening. I think that is what also indicates that we don't know what day we're actually watching here, because all of this didn't happen in the same day. It's definitely not the same day. So they stand outside for a second by Miss Cobell's car, and they had a little short battle of wits and words before Helena arranges a meeting with the board. And she refers to the board as them, very different from earlier when Natalie recalls the board and it. Now, as they walk towards the building, Cobell senses something and she turns around and bounces like she left some shit on the stove or something. They were about to retire her ass for real, and she knew it. Cobell is a threat to Lumen somehow. Now, somehow Ragabi finds Mark and stops him from potentially damaging his eyes. And she tells him that the last time she saw Gemma, she was alive. So she pretty much confirms it for Mark. And Mark, he's all in, ready to get reintegrated. I do have to say that I was right about Ragabi having someone on the inside. And it's obvious that she had not met with Mark ever since she took out Grainer. She also knew that Mark's plan to do the after image thing came from his computer. She knew about the OTC incident, and I think her inside man is either someone who we haven't seen yet, or it's Milchick. Milchick could be playing the long game while working his way up, and I think those paintings were a way of reminding him that he was not an Egan. Anyway, Mark agrees to travel down a true path of enlightenment by becoming one with his inner self, reintegration. Ragabi is the witch doctor who performs this ritual, starting off by laying out a circle of salt. And while turning on her machines, that symbolizes lighting the candle. Now, all of this is taking place in Mark's basement, which represents the severed floor. This is the same place where Petey was having his reintegration episodes, and also where Miss Cobell gets the candle out of the basement and she puts it on the severed floor, which is a mirror of each other. The severed floor is a basement, right? Then Ragabi takes her magic wand and she places it above Mark's head. She casts a spell on him by asking him questions that ended up making him remember the memories of his inner self. And those very memories were a similar spell that was being cast on the Any during the intake ritual, which is also a series of questions. Now, it happened sooner than I thought it would, but I definitely knew that the OG intro and the new intro sequences foreshadow Mark's reintegration. And this episode pretty much broke that down perfectly. That reintegration scene was totally fire. The music coming in at the end, everything was great. I don't think the timeline of what we saw was actually in the correct chronological order, but we will see. I don't know. I could be wrong. And also, be on the lookout for my deeper esoteric breakdown sometime before episode 4 comes. And be sure to tune in for my live streams throughout the week. I'll do one Saturday for sure, and I do several throughout the week. It depends on how much time I have. So I gotta say that season 3 is definitely off to a great pace. I can't wait to see episode 4. And thank you if you made it this far in the video. And if you liked the video, tap that screen a few times by doing all that good YouTube stuff, by liking, sharing, jumping down in the comments. And if you're not subbed, hopefully this will be the video to make you do it. Anyway, just a little something to think about while we wait on the next episode. That's all for my video today. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.